Calling all instructional coaches, curriculum specialists, teachers on special assignment, or whatever they call you. I'm Matteo Souza.
And I'm Katie Ritter. As instructional coaches, we are often responsible for our own professional learning and can sometimes feel pretty isolated in our role.
That's why we're here, bridging the gap with a wealth of tips, tricks, and building a community of coaches.
So hit the restart button with us.
Recharge your coaching batteries.
And hopefully you'll leave feeling just a little bit less on your own coaching island.
Welcome back, listeners. Today we are exploring a journey that many of us have taken and some of us might be considering. The transition from classroom teacher to instructional coach to admin to anything outside of the classroom. Join us as we welcome Grace Brown, an instructional coach here at Forward Edge who's passionate about empowering educators and shaping the future of learning. Grace's journey from a 9 to 12 English teacher to a curriculum innovator and instructional design expert is a testament to her commitment to student success and building up teachers. In this episode, she'll share insights into her transition from the classroom to coaching, offering valuable perspectives for those considering a similar path. Welcome to the pod,
Welcome
Grace.
back, Grace.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah. We're recording this podcast mid-school year, but our plan is to release it at the time when people are thinking about what's next school year look like for me and thinking about interviewing for other positions. So that will be the frame of thinking that our listeners will be in at the time we release the pod. So let's jump in because this is your first year as a coach, having left the classroom after a while. So what would you say is the hardest part from leaving the classroom?
I think the hardest part, I don't know that hard is the right word. It's been like one of the biggest shifts, but it's a positive shift, even though it has its own challenges. Existing in a different professional environment has been a huge shift in getting used to. So I don't want to say that is hard because, again, that makes it sound like it's bad and it's not. But simple things like the whole first week in the office, I was telling everybody where I was going. Every time I got up to fill up my water bottle or go to the bathroom, poor Jamie, who sits across from me, I was always like, hey, I'm going to go to the bathroom, I'll be right back. Or, hey, I'm going to go fill up my water bottle, I'll be right back. And I finally realized what I was doing, and I'm like, no one cares. It's okay. And I think that kind of stuff was a shift, and even just trying to figure out what to do with that professional autonomy and freedom. I think sometimes as teachers, we can feel the pressure of everyone needs to know what we're doing all the time, whether that's students or administrators. You're just always on for the whole time that you're there. It's part of what makes it so exhausting. And so then to be in a workspace where at our office, if it's nice out, we'll take a couple laps, help break up the day, get some movement in. The first time I was invited to take a walk, I looked, I think, Katie, to your office and to Tyler's office to be like, do I need to tell them where I'm going? Like, what if they need me? And it's like, everything's gonna be fine. So I think the shift in professional workspaces and how a different industry operates, there's a lot to get used to in that. A lot of it is positive, but it is a lot to adjust to. I taught for 11 years. It's the only job. I mean, I did like part-time work, but it's been my only grown-up job. And then being in school for all that time, you just get used to what it feels like to be in that environment. So I think that was the biggest shift of this is how other professions operate.
Yeah.
For sure. Are there any other things? Because you mentioned there's some good things, and one of those things is probably like you can go out and not have to tell anybody that you're going on a quick walk around the building. But what's some negative things, maybe something that surprised you that you didn't appreciate?
Sitting down a lot. I think that's the first thing over the summer. Maybe it ties into the walks where I just was like, I cannot stay stationary for this long. As a teacher, I'm used to built-in movement and that activity and energy. I personally really feed off of that. I guess I didn't know that about myself because I was only used to one environment. To switch to staring at a screen and sitting down in one spot all day, it was a really big shift, and that was difficult. Along with, I think, the shifting of time management. It goes hand in hand with the positive of there is more time to get work done. There is more freedom in how you devote your time and energy. But with that, I, again, was used to like, I know what I'm doing for 50 minutes, 8 different times a day or 6 different times a day, depending on what school I was in. And so for me, that really helped to direct my focus and help me prioritize. Now to have a little bit more of an open timeline, it's been a bit of an adjustment of how am I keeping myself on task? Feels weird saying that in front of my boss. Katie, I promise I'm on task.
Grace, first of all, this is not something I don't know. I was literally going to comment and say I do feel like that's something that I see most people who leave the classroom. But even someone like Mateus said at the beginning, like maybe you're going into an admin role or a different role that is still directly working with a school district, just no longer classroom teaching. I definitely think that is something that so many people can relate to, because teaching is such a rigid structure of your day. Even what you're doing within those 50 minutes to some extent is defined for you. You have to cover these topics or do these things, or if the curriculum is chosen for you, right? Coming from teaching, it truly is so scripted. And I think that's a great call out for someone who is thinking about making that transition, because some people cannot handle the openness and the open structure with the time management. I am curious though, if there was anything, I always think this is an interesting thing when people leave the classroom, because it oftentimes, as teachers, we very deeply identify with being a teacher, with being an educator, right? When you're thinking about leaving, it can be this really emotional experience, and like any career change. But I think with something in particular where people do identify deeply with the profession, it's an emotional experience to think about changing. So I'm curious, from your perspective, is there anything that made you pause in your consideration of leaving the classroom that you still really miss, or how have you adapted and are getting that in a different way and it hasn't been as big of a deal maybe as you thought it was?
I knew from 5th grade that I wanted to be a teacher. It was never anything I questioned, and I never imagined myself leaving the classroom. So 100% to your point, it was probably 2 years from me seriously considering the move to actually pursuing leaving the classroom. But a lot of it was serious processing on, do I really want to do this? What are the reasons that I am leaving? What are the things I am hoping to find in a new opportunity? I think for teachers who are looking to leave, I think assessing your values. I worked really closely with some friends who were not teachers but are in ed, like in sales, and have always been corporate. And so they were helping me through this and called that out for me. I realized that I still wanted to be in education. It is something that's so important to me. I am passionate about equitable education, providing students with the best learning opportunities possible. I'm very passionate about teacher support, and knew that I wanted to work for a company or in a role that would still hit those points for me. I did love my students. I feel like students are the best and the worst part. They are the best part because they're the part that makes the day fun and interesting, but then sometimes they're also the worst part when you're chasing after work or something happens in class. And so I think I was most worried about how am I going to maintain that connection. In this role, I've been able to maintain connection with students. And honestly, Tracy, who I know last season talked about tech pop-ups, I totally took that from her. And man, the last couple of weeks, I have been in classrooms multiple times a week teaching, working with first, second, and third graders who I never taught, and I was so terrified of as an upper school teacher, as a high school teacher. Granted, I only have them for 40 minutes, but it is so wonderful, and it's such a joy. I worked with the 5th grade students the other day, giving a presentation on Magic School and AI, and again, part of it is I tap into my fun aunt side, where I get to come in and do the fun thing, and then give them back.
I love that.
Yeah, that's perfect to describe it.
In this new role, I still feel like my sense of purpose and self are still being met. My cup in those ways is still being filled with the work I'm doing here.
That's
I
awesome.
think that is excellent advice.
Absolutely. Now, you've transitioned. When I think about my own experience, I realize I've been in school as a student or as a teacher the vast majority of my life. I literally don't know anything else. My life has had a summer break. When I transitioned out, there were things that I just didn't know about, things that I had no information about. I remember sitting at parties talking with people that were not teachers, and I would hear their conversation like, it doesn't apply to me. I'm a teacher. I don't know what they're talking about. That's business stuff. All of a sudden, I'm like, oh, interesting. I'm beginning to realize how things work. Are there any blind spots that you've noticed, things that you learned about that you didn't know and you maybe sheltered as a teacher?
Yeah, that's a big one. I remember my onboarding meeting, my first day of work. And I was in a meeting with Tyler for maybe an hour and a half. But all the different things that companies use to communicate or to send work to each other and the workflow process. As a teacher, even when I've been in districts where there's like a scope and sequence and we're all supposed to be following the same pattern, you are in your room doing your own thing. My workflow is what I decided it was. I'm the one who's going to be responsible. If I didn't get my work done, it's just going to fall on me. And so I think even that is still something that I'm trying to manage. Some of it's just really basic stuff like that where I'm like, oh, okay, I need to learn how to be in that step with coworkers.
Yeah. That is definitely something I noticed. And then there's also the corporate lingo. I think Katie has introduced me to a lot of different phrases. The download. Everybody loves to circle back around. We all love those. There's a lot of lingo we just don't use as much.
Some of them are just because I make up my own language.
It's that plus like all of these like sounds good to me, SGTM. I'm sitting there at the comment staring at what does that mean?
I've not seen that one.
But
That's
I'd rather
what I do
just
when I
spend the
don't
30 seconds staring at it and be like, what could that be?
I had that while I was teaching. Actually, my department chair at the time, she super efficient. She's an incredibly organized. She was amazing as a leader. But she asked me for something and she was like, I'll have this EOD or can you get this EOD? And I remember I sat and I looked at that for a while. I'm a smart person. I have a master's degree. I should be able to figure this out. I went through, especially with the thing that she was asking me for. I'm like, okay, so what could that be? And I finally broke down and I emailed her and I was like, I will absolutely do whatever it is you need me to do. What does this mean?
What does EOD mean?
And she was like, end of day. And I was like, awesome. I feel stupid, but thank you.
Glad I just wasted 30 minutes trying to figure out what EOD means.
Please tell me you sent that at 4:30 p.m.
Exactly.
Oh, that's
That's great.
funny. Okay, I think we will take a quick break
You
from
read
our
my mind.
sponsors.
Calling all instructional coaches. Join Forward Edge for Coaches Camp in summer of 2025. Coaches Camp is packed with high-quality professional development exclusively for you. Attendees will work with like-minded coaches on creating strategies for building teacher relationships, executing coaching cycles, and building a culture of coaching and tech integration within their school district. There are 2 opportunities to attend Coaches Camp in the summer of 2025. You can either join us virtually July 22nd through 24th, or come to Cincinnati on July 28th and 29th. Please visit forward-edge.net/coachcamp to reserve your spot today.
Looking for a program that reaches all teachers in learning new tools to integrate in their lessons? Edu Badges is the answer. Edu is an anytime, anywhere badging program that is designed to take bite-sized tools for instruction and teach teachers how to use them. Edu has received the ISTE Seal of Alignment for educator standards, and each badge in our expanding library is aligned to the ISTE standards and the SAMR model. Learn more about the program that teachers call addicting at forward-edge.net/Edu Badges.
Welcome back. We are talking with Grace Brown about transitioning out of the classroom teaching role. Grace is definitely bringing a perspective of transitioning from classroom teacher to business world, but also lots of things that would apply for folks who are transitioning out of the classroom and staying within the district itself. Grace, when we think about transitioning from classroom teacher to instructional coach, supporting teachers, what are some of the mindset shifts that you made in order to be an effective, confident coach?
I do find myself still a lot of times thinking like a teacher. Mateus, you and I have conversations where I'm saying those are really good teacher things, but we're looking for coaching things, or even working with Brooke and Emily with the Edu Network and social media posts. I sometimes fall back into teacher mindset and have to be reminded of coaching mindset. But I think as a coach, something that I'm trying to shift into is tapping into the feelings that I had as a teacher, where I wish I had this kind of support.
Yeah.
I wish that my district or my school had this position or had someone like this. What would I have asked from them? And what would I have wanted from a person? And I think that's one, to speak to people who are nervous about what am I going to bring to a new role. I feel like my teaching career has helped I bring that kind of experience. When I'm developing PD sessions, what would I have wanted to see as a teacher, or what would I have not wanted to see as a teacher? What would have sent me heckling in the back or completely off task? So I think pairing those mindsets, it's not about necessarily losing one, we're sacrificing one experience for the other, but how can I tap into both?
Yeah, I think that is a really smart way to connect to that empathetic side that you need to be an effective coach. And I also think you hit on something that I have observed a lot when I see people make this transition, in particular, like this teacher to coach role. And that is like thinking like an individual classroom teacher. You can empathize with this teacher, what's happening with their students, the injustice of what we're asking this teacher to do, because you just went through it yourself, shifting that thinking to more like big picture, more whole system. What's everything that's connected? So I think that's a smart observation that you're already realizing, because it does take a little while to start thinking differently in that way, right? As a coach, we are supporting the whole system. We are sometimes asked to make decisions and develop learning programs and plans that affect the entire staff, right? And ultimately all of the students, not just the one teacher or the one department. And so that thinking in that balance, and we're also trying to balance what works for the admin who have this whole other set of issues. I think that's a smart observation, and something Mateus was also asking me at the beginning, just my opinion, what have I seen people struggle with here. I often see a specific transition, like from teacher to coaching role, most specifically a tech coaching role. But I also often see coaches come in and they valued technology so much. That's why they're interested in this role of being a tech coach. They see the impact it makes and they're so excited. I think when they go into a school, everyone's going to love it, even if they don't love it right away. As soon as you tell them how great it is and what an impact it can make, they're going to jump on board and it will be so easy. And you very quickly realize like changing adult behavior and practices is not easy, no matter what we're talking about and how obvious it seems to you. So you have to like really shift your thinking and approach that way too. So that would be my good observation and +1 broad scale that I've seen too.
And that made me think too, because you mentioned this component of empathy, which is that's something that we've been ingrained with. We've been doing this for the longest time in our classrooms. What are some things that you keep just as teacher mindsets or teacher strengths that are useful to you now?
I find myself now working a lot with math teachers, and I was a high school English teacher, and initially I get a little nervous because I never taught math, so I don't know what is developmentally appropriate or how to break this down. But I think using my understanding of what components make an engaging lesson, what tools was I using as a teacher to see positive learning outcomes in my classroom. And I believed this as a teacher. I still believe this now. There are some very basic best practices in terms of classroom management and lesson setup that can be stretched across curriculum and can be beneficial in any classroom. And so I think my classroom management strengths are coming into play. When I was in my undergrad, in my teaching cohort, I won the award for most likely to have the most managed classroom. And
what an award!
That's quite good. That's good.
It was great. And even Katie, to your point, teaching adults or transferring that, I think my ability to present is a strength, but then also learning some of the strategies I would use to bring students back in or to keep students on task, I can't really use with adults. And so that's been a challenge, but I also think my ability to, having worked with challenging students or working in challenging classrooms, gives you that confidence. Fake it till you make it, persevere, we're going to figure it out. You just keep going. And I think that is something like a teaching superpower that definitely connects to this role. I think I still get really nervous in front of PD because like students, I am not nervous in front of, even if it's a group that I don't know or work with, but like adults make me super nervous. And that's been tricky. But yeah, those are the key things that stand out. That connection to classroom, teacher, department, building. The beauty now is, to Katie's point, I get to see how all of those work together. And I still get to connect with teachers on the individual level and make those connections. Teachers often feel voiceless in a school administration. I feel very lucky now to be in a position, not that it's always going to happen, but that at the least I have the ability to connect those parties or be the mediator, to be the person who's standing in and being like, listen, your teachers need this. Or in the other direction, listen, these are the things your administration is facing. This is why we're facing these roadblocks, because it just literally can't happen.
I've always thought that was one of the coolest things about being a coach, is how uniquely situated we are to connect in different stakeholders and help people see the system and what they think should be happening and why it can't be happening, how they are preventing as a result of how they've structured the system that is actually preventing what you're trying to make happen from happening. So I agree. I think that's great.
What's your favorite phrase? Every system is perfectly designed to get the outcome that it gets.
Yeah, I usually say the results it gets, but
okay.
I think
I
that's the
got
quote. You nailed it.
Hey, look at me go.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me. SGMT.
Okay, Grace, let's end this episode with your top 3 tips for helping classroom teachers transition out of the classroom and into a coaching role.
Yes. So my first tip is create a network, which networking for a job or a position is a totally different ballgame and definitely required encouraging from friends. And I learned very quickly it is very much about the connections that you have. So I think creating a network, not being afraid to build a network, is definitely my number one tip, because you're just going to learn so much and it's going to help you narrow down your search. I'm very interested in that kind of work. So that would be tip number 1. And I think partnering with that, tip number 2 is perseverance, to not give up. From the time that I really seriously started looking and applying to things outside of the classroom, it was 2 years of applying and being rejected. And man, there is nothing like going through an emotional identity shift, questioning whether or not you can do anything else. And then it's just not, you're either not going to hear anything at all, or you're going to get a very basic AI generated bot email of like, thanks for applying, we're not interested. And that stinks. There's no way around the feeling of that stinks, especially when you find something that you're like, oh, I know I could do that. I know I would be really good at that. I would just encourage any teacher to keep trying, keep applying, do not get discouraged. And the last tip is be confident that you do have valuable skills that are so worthwhile and so necessary to a workplace outside of the classroom teacher. I think for teachers, we have so many skills. We are excellent communicators. We are great presenters. We know how to break complex concepts down into bite-sized units and communicate them to an audience. We know how to intervene when somebody isn't on task or isn't getting something. We have organizational skills. Think of all of the content that you've ever created. You have so many skills. You are a leader. This presentation that you give one time to one audience who is there for that purpose and wants that information, has you this stressed out or this lasered in on this project for a whole week. I give 6 presentations in a day to an unwilling, uncooperative audience who is forced to be there.
Good point.
Teachers have so many skills that so many industries can benefit from, and it's going to be difficult, but be confident that any company would be really lucky to have you, and that you deserve to have a great work-life balance and to be appreciated in any role that you exist in. So I think maintaining that confidence is really key.
Yeah. Awesome. I really loved how you focused on not saying I'm just a teacher. There is so much that we bring to the table as teachers, and you made a good point. Thank you so much for being here, Grace. This was awesome. Thanks for letting us pick your brain. Dear listeners, I know this was a broad topic. I hope it didn't feel like boiling the ocean to you. But if you still have the bandwidth, please come circle back around onto our social medias and share with us how you transitioned out of the classroom.
Thanks, Grace.
Thank you, Grace.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for spending time with us today. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with an educator friend.
And connect with us on social media at RRCoachCast to let us know what you thought of the episode and what topics you want us to discuss next.
New episodes drop every other Tuesday. Be sure to subscribe to Restart Recharge wherever you listen to podcasts.
So press the restart button,
recharge your coaching batteries, and leave feeling equipped and inspired to coach fearlessly with the Restart Recharge podcast,
a Tech Coach collective. Everyone's cozy. Damn it.
Instructional Join bum, 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 bum. Join us. Join us.